Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton? If I was an American in America, who would I vote for? Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton? I'll be quite frank with you. I'd vote for Donald Trump. That may come across as surprising to some of you watching because of the fact that I am a black man. But you gotta consider a few things: metaphysics, the occult, the idea that everything seen is because of everything unseen. And so you've got a lot of forces working behind the scenes. So you have to bear in mind that if a politician tells you they are for you and they are benign and they have your best interests in heart, that may not necessarily be the case. A lot of people will say a lot of things to get what they want. And in the case of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, I am all about change. I'm a life path number 5. And I share that life path number with Donald Trump, ironically. And I'm all about change. I don't like the status quo, particularly if the status quo is not working. And you have to remember that America affects the world. Its theme affects the world, like every other country affects America, whether you feel it or not. And so it's a very important consideration for me. Which one would I go with? Not that I feel either of them would be of any particular benefit to me as a black man, but who would I go for nonetheless, since I have a vote if I were there? And for a while now, actually, I have been seeking change for some years, maybe since 2010, 2011. I've been actually seeking change, particularly where politics is concerned. You see the same old bullshit all the time, isn't it? People just talking out their ass, blah, 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 blah. And when it comes to Hillary Clinton, she is the archetypal politician, in my opinion. And that's not a good thing, if you ask me. I don't like Donald Trump. I'm not for him, per se, but I am for change. He represents the change to me. What's going on in politics? Who would have thought that Donald Trump would be where he's at now in politics last year? It would have been seen as comedy, right? So the very fact that it's actually a reality is very promising for me, somebody who's all about change. And that's why I'm vouching for Donald Trump and not Hillary Clinton. You have to bear in mind, Hillary Clinton has sat herself in positions of power a few times, if not more. Just bear that in mind. And also take yourself back to Libya and how that was dealt with when she was Secretary of State. So as I said to you before, regardless what anyone says, regardless how bad they make their competitors look, a lot of the time, politicians, they're not really for you. And I think a lot of black people and a lot of, people of ethnic minorities are being manipulated by Mrs. Clinton because she knows she is up against an unpolitically correct man, which actually represents the Aquarian age. This whole idea of self-expression and the freedom to be self-expressive and to say things that in the Piscean age may not have been palatable. So to see a character like Donald Trump doing what he's doing and it being broadcasted worldwide, it's actually very promising for me. That may sound ridiculous to somebody who is just looking at the surface, but I look much deeper than the surface. I look at actually the essence of things and not what necessarily. So in terms of change, I also have to let you guys know that I did vote to leave the EU on the basis of the same thing, change. I did not actually realize that we had been in the European Union for at least 40, 50 years. So longer than I have lived. So I've not known any other, UK apart from a UK that's part of the European Union. And I went recently, back in May, a couple months ago now, I went to an EU debate in Glasgow that the BBC was hosting. And that was a very illuminating experience for me. Not because I had a good experience necessarily, but I did see more how things are in terms of, the BBC broadcasting what they want to broadcast and the arguments that were held for the Remain and for the Leave. And by the way, when I went to that debate, I was actually on the Remain side. I initially wanted to remain because I am, you know, a utopic kind of guy. I do see us as one big family, one big world. I don't like this whole idea of countries, but hey, I'm in the space where I'm in now, where we do have countries, so I have to be realistic at the same time. And my spirit brought it upon me to realize that, in fact, by me voting to leave the EU, I will be helping induce change, which people may not want. But you'll find a lot of the time when change does occur, a lot of people, you know, go all over the place. They get all, you know, rowdy and stroppy about it. But looking back in years to come, they may actually see it with a different kind of appreciation. Because it is difficult change. Change puts you in uncomfort, takes you to, you know, uncharted territories, but you have to go there if you're going to progress, right? And in this time of the transition from Pisces to Aquarius, when we are seeing more of an individual sovereignty, an individual expression mode, you are going to find a lot of quote unquote politicians being knocked back and knocked aside. And for me, actually, the Brexit result was a very big coup for change. It was, you know, nobody thought that we could ever have the balls to actually vote to leave, and yet we did. And in fact, if I'm honest with you, when I did put my cross on the leave, I didn't actually think that would take effect. So I was quite pleased with that result. Not because I can see the future and I know what's going to happen, but simply because I know whatever the case is, there is change. And without change, you cannot progress. You see? So that's my take in terms of politics. I'm not big on politics. I'm not passionate about it, I would say. But by virtue of me being a part of society, I am in politics. Whether you are interested in politics or not, you are in politics. It's not something that you have a choice of. You are part of it. Without you as a person, without you as the people, there would be no politics. So we do have to take a stake in that. But that's why I wanted to just put it out there, because there are people who have actually, you know, misread me and misinterpreted me in regards to some of my political decisions of late. But without change, there's nothing. It's just the same old. So are you telling me because you're afraid of change, you'd rather have the same old? That's a very fearful substance to, you know, to have. And so for me, a person who does love change and loves adventure and new experiences, it's a no-brainer for me to have voted to leave the European Union. And as I said, if I was in America voting now, I would be voting for Donald Trump. Not because Donald likes me, but because what he says is on his mind, as it clearly appears to be. Whereas with Hillary, you can see she is the old Piscean politician, saying anything that she thinks people want to hear because she thinks people are foolish. That's the overwhelming feeling I get from her. It's just, I get it's almost like I can see through her smile. I don't know for any of you Aquarian peeps out there if you get that same feeling too, but I get the feeling that I can see through Hillary's smile, that what she's telling me is bullshit. You know, she's got one of her hands behind her back, fingers crossed, and she's waving with the other hand. That's the sort of feeling I get. Call it paranoia if you will. Call it knowing more than most if you will. But that's the overwhelming feeling I get. I think that age of politics, that cloth of politician, the one who can blag anyone, particularly the minorities, I think that is coming to an end. And if we do see Hillary in the White House by the end of the year, that's cool. That will just be the same old, isn't it? You know, same old politics. Now with Donald in there, you can argue that it will be the same old politics, but at least it's a precedent. The fact that somebody not from a political background, somebody who is not by default a politician, an outsider coming into the White House, that would actually be great for a lot of people. But people are caught up in the details and the little nitpicking that is going on around the media. And of course, Donald Trump is not helping himself by being like that, but of course at the same time he is, because that's why he's got to where he's got to. Because I think people see something that they've not seen before in politics, or at least I have not seen, you know, which is non-political correctness rather than political correctness, because political correctness is another term for farce. It's a fancy term for farce, if we want to be real here. So let's see what happens in this 9 universal year. You also have to remember, numerologically, it's a 9 universal year. So this is a year where you will see dramatic change in preparation for a new cycle of 9 years. So with us in the UK choosing to leave the European Union, and thus being able to create a more sovereign state, if you will, or create or control the policies that we create, and control our borders as we would want to, not by another superpower, I think is great. Because if you really think about the European Union model, the EU model, this whole Brussels thing, come on, man, that's just like Illuminati, right? What everybody hates. You got people you don't even know, somewhere you don't even know, controlling what's going on where you are. The idea is crazy. And if you see 1,000 years from now, when we're much more into the Aquarian age, the idea that one country was part of a superpower remote from it, in a sense, is ridiculous. But because we're in it right now, unless you are not afraid of change, that will really seem like a crazy proposition to break off from the EU. And it would seem a crazy proposition to put a man such as Donald Trump in office who would blow us all up with nuclear bombs. I don't believe him for 1 second when he talks all that stuff. It's all bravado. But you have to appreciate this is a man who is saying things that he feels he wants to say and can say it. Unlike Hillary, who you can tell has been screened several times before she says anything. So I'd rather have the devil tell me he is the devil than the devil tell me he is not. God says, I esteem more an honest, evil man than I do a dishonest, pious man. Let that melt in your head for a while.